I'm Max Sterling, welcome to LarpMix. As All Hallows Eve draws closer, an ethereal wind drifts through the veil and across the worlds of LARP, carrying whispers of dark tales and secrets untold from their world to yours. These are Larptales from Beyond. And now I didn't like the way I went. Okay, let's just cut that rap. Yeah, you can put that stuff down. Just go ahead. Take lunch. Yeah. Alright, I'll see you in a couple minutes. Hey, what is this, amateur hour? Get the video back up. I'm not done talking. And, let's drop a beat here. Oh, hold on. Thanks. Instead of smart water. I decided instead of doing a story like we normally do this year, that I would go ahead and maybe just tell you a story about something that happened to me while I was LARPing. And I think that you may find that a little bit more interesting than me making something up and just regaling you some tale that someone else had already written. So this story starts out probably about 10 or 15 years ago. Me and my friend, we'll call him Kurt, we're LARPing. It's something we had done, for 10, 12 years before. This was somewhere in the middle of my LARPing career. And nothing was really out of the unusual that weekend. That is, until Saturday night. So, yeah. I'm trying to do something here, guys. / your pal Maxx. Yeah, sell that on eBay. It's probably worth $10,000. Anyways, where was I? Yeah, so it was an event like any other. Me and my pal Kurt, we had done this many times before throughout the years. So we never really thought anything of it. But little did we know that this weekend would actually change the way we LARP and, make a significant impact on our lives. So we went to the event. It was a summertime event. Everything was fantastic. Didn't have any issues. Everything went smooth. All the monsters were slain. It was Saturday evening, and normally at this particular game, you go Friday night, you play Friday evening, you play all day Saturday, you stay over Saturday night, and then Sunday morning is whenever you clean up and leave the site. So all the monsters had been slain, all the gold had been counted, and we were getting ready to go to sleep. It's very late at night, maybe 4 in the morning, so we were definitely ready for bed. Now, the camp that we stay at for this particular game is a state park, and there are all kinds of cabins there, very old cabins. In fact, the cabins themselves are so sort of dilapidated and run down that there are gaps in them, and they're little more than probably a shed that you would have in your backyard or something. The roofs don't leak, but they certainly are not insulated. So inside of the cabins, it's usually a good 10-15 degrees cooler than actually is outside. And in the summer, it's definitely hotter as well. They do have electricity, but it's sketchy, and they always say don't leave the lights on or plug in space heaters or things because it could burn the place down. So to give you a sort of an idea of what these cabins look like, they're just brown wood on the outside and inside, very old, very dirty, not well upkept at all. Many of the floors are sort of wonky, and the pillars that they stand on are just giving way to time. I remember a short while after using this camp, I actually wrote a letter to the governor of my state and asked them if they could do something with this park, because there's tons of these cabins there. And I said, you should basically bulldoze these things and put in some new ones, or you should have someone come out and try to fix these if there's money that can be budgeted for that. And I actually got a response back from them. What they told me, I thought was pretty interesting. They told me that these cabins had actually been built by prisoners back in the 1900s. So as part of, I guess, their prison thing that they did back then, they had to do some sort of service or it was work or something. And they had these prisoners come out and they built these cabins or whatever. At least this is the story. So these cabins are, at this point in the early 2000s, probably 100 to 100 plus years old with, state-run upkeep on them. So to further explain to you the condition of these things. Now, that being said, I had been staying in them for years. There are multiple campsites within that camp that we had stayed at. But it was this one particular site. It has actually a setup for 2 different taverns and 2 different sort of camping areas. And normally we try to stay as close to the main action as possible. However, this particular time, by the time we got there a little late, all of the bunks had been taken. So we had to stay out in this area, we'll call it Shadow Town. And there was only one cabin left. It was a 4-person cabin, but there was only the 2 of us. We were running pretty light crew that weekend. So, we took it, whatever, it's not a big deal. On Saturday night, so picture this, you've been through the woods, running down monsters, hiding in the shadows, jumping people on the trails, doing all the deeds that you do as you LARP. And it's a full moon, so there's not a lot of light. It's actually quite bright out. But that creates its own, unique circumstances. It gives darker, deeper shadows where there should be shadows. And that false sense of security of being in the light. So it's great for, secret things to happen. But anyways, the point of the story is that sometime around 4 a.m., we decided to go back to our cabin to go to sleep. The floor plan was such that the door was in the center of the cabin. When you walk inside, it's just an open room, probably 10 by 10, maybe 12 by 12, and there are 4 cots in there. Now, these are metal frame cots with metal springs that you would put like a foam mattress pad or something on. I always just slept my sleeping bag right on top of the metal. I didn't really feel like dragging a bunch of like foam or cardboard or something up to put down on top of it like the Boy Scouts or someone may do. So Kurt was closest to the door. So if this would be the door, his bunk was right here. Mine was across the building in the back on this side, so we were diagonal. And the light switch, of course, was actually right by the door, right beside him. So, eyelids heavy from a hard day of running around in the heat, being dehydrated, and just really run down. So nice to finally lay down and go to sleep. As soon as I started to drift off, I started hearing screeching, 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 which is sort of the sound that the beds would make if someone was laying on them or moving around on them, because it was that sort of metal wire on metal frame sound, if you can imagine what I mean. I don't know if any games you go to have these type of cots or beds or not, but if they do, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This screechy, screechy, screechy. So I'm laying there just about to pass out, and I hear screeching, 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 screeching. And I don't think anything of it at first. It's Kurt moving around. And then I hear it some more. Screechy, 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 screechy. And, I don't know what's going on with this guy. I mean, as you make adjustments or if you move around or anything, the beds make these noises. There's no way to be silent on these beds. As many young lovers have probably discovered at this LARP. The beds are noisy. So finally, after about 10 minutes of laying there, screechy, 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 almost non-stop, screechy, 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 I tried to determine where it was coming from, and it actually didn't sound like it was coming from his corner of the cabin. It sounded like it was coming directly across from me, which, there's no one in that bunk. I started thinking to myself, well, no, it must just be the acoustics in here. It obviously has to be him. There's only 2 of us in the cabin. There can't be anyone in this bunk that's right across from me because there's no one in it. Screechy, 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 screechy. So finally, I say, holy hell, Kurt, can you just chill out for me? I'm trying to go to sleep. And from his dark corner of the room, these rooms were pitch black, even with the full moon, I hear, dude, I thought that was you. It stops. I'm like, Kurt, get the lights. And we hear a screechy, 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 screechy. He reaches over slowly to flip on the light switch. Now, he's using his boffer sword at the time. This was, mid-90s US LARP, so we have, foam and plastic pipe inside with duct tape on it. So he reaches out to turn on the light switch, and we can still hear it. Screechy, screechy, screechy. Maybe not as aggressively as it was a minute ago. Screechy, screechy, screechy. Lights. We had both immediately shoot our gaze to that bed. Nothing. Not a mouse, not a snake, not a raccoon, not a squirrel, a chipmunk, or anything. It is completely nothing there. And the noise stopped immediately with the lights. I listen outside to make sure someone maybe wasn't outside messing with us. There's no one around. Bed. Just sitting there, completely empty. The cabin is so small, there's no gaps in the walls. The amount of time it took him to flip that light switch and the sound to stop, there's no way anything could have gotten away in that amount of time. That also being said, it could not have been a mouse or something small. It requires some effort to push these springs because it's all metal to make it actually make that screechy sound. It would have had to have been something, I would think, at least raccoon-sized, maybe possum-sized, to get that sort of movement and sound out of that mattress. When he flipped it on and there was nothing there, we both, just all the blood drained from our face because what was making the sound. And the fact that it stopped, if it had continued and we could see what was happening, that'd be one thing, but it just completely stopped. Left the lights on, we packed up our gear, we got in our cars, and we left. We were both so unbelievably tired. It was the most terrifying drive home as we talked on our phones. And back then it was just like those stupid candy bar type phones as we talked and tried to keep each other awake on the drive home as, I drove behind him. And just the whole time driving thinking, wow, what the hell was going on there? Is this place haunted? We didn't talk about ghosts or what it could have been, but, geez, what the hell happened in that bed? So we drive, we get home. By the time I get home, it's like 6 a.m. I'm unbelievably tired. I just go inside and crash, half in, kit, half in civilian streetwear, because I was just wearing whatever I fell asleep in that night. And the next day, we got together and we talked about it, and just, pretty much the question on the street was, what the hell was that? And to this day, I do not know what happened in Cabin 7. I really don't. And if anyone who attends that LARP may know what I'm talking about, if you ever stay in Cabin 7, then you may have a similar experience. I had never stayed in that cabin before then, and I would tell you this, to this day, some 15, 16 years later, I do not stay over at that LARP, at that campsite. I won't do it. I drive home every night, and I drive back every day that the LARP is in process. I will play until the game is called or until everyone goes to sleep. I will then drive home, no matter the distance, and I will drive back the next morning. I refuse to stay at that camp because of that one single experience. I, to this day, cannot explain what happened. I've told this story to several people over the years. They also have no idea what could have happened in that cabin. I've spoken to people who stayed in that cabin. I've given ominous warnings to people that I see loading their stuff into that cabin. But I don't believe that anyone else has had that experience, which to me is just confusing. I wish more people would have run into that, or someone would have said, yeah, that happened before, and it was this scenario or that scenario, but nobody has had it. And it would have been different if maybe it was, both empty bunks, maybe because something was, vibrating, or maybe the foundation pillars, maybe the place was rocking in the wind or something, but it was just that one single cot or bed, whatever you want to call it. These things, I wouldn't call them a bed. They're just a metal frame with metal wires, basically. But yeah, pretty crazy story. And I would love to know if you ever had an experience like that at your game. If you did, comment below. I would love to know about that. Hit me up on social media. Let me know if you've had any interesting encounters at any games that you play. But for me, that was just a pretty wild time for me and Kurt. And Kurt didn't stay at the camp either. Kurt was a hunter. Myself, not easily shaken. Don't really believe in ghosts or anything like that. So to us, it was just so supremely odd that the two of us never stayed there again. And for the drive required to get to that game, that's a bummer, but it's also a personal choice. So I hope that you enjoyed this tale, but fear not, for it's just a tale of my world. Just hope that my words were the only thing crossing through the veil from my world to yours. And of course, as always, adventure on. Alright folks, everybody come back. Let's go ahead and try another take on this here. What were we talking about again? Post-apocalyptic? Alright. Yeah, no more autographs. We're about ready to shoot here. Come on now. Where's my hat?